Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're here with all these cool people live or joining us on the replay on YouTube. We're so happy to have you here. And yeah, I think we're gonna give you a little taste of what we're going to be talking about this evening. What is that, Mushtaq?
We are talking about the matrix upon which Gurdjieff built his methodology. And it's interesting because, he used to say he didn't have a system, and he didn't, but he did have a method, which is a
Mm,
different thing. And so we're going to look at that and what it's based on, what we can learn from it, and how we can adapt it to our own uses, and a little bit about where it came from. So
yes.
that's what we're going to be working on tonight. And we're going to be specifically talking about um, the laws upon which he built it. So mysterious.
So mysterious. Yay. Okay, so we'll be getting into that more shortly. But first of all, we just want to invite you, since we're on YouTube and all, to help us out. Do that subscribe thing if you haven't already. You can like this video. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And if you want to join in on the conversation, you can leave a comment and either we or someone else might respond to you. You never know because as we like to say, this is a community. It's not just
Yeah.
us.
And we have a lot of smart viewers.
Yeah, yeah. But in the meanwhile, as many of you know, our fund drive is ongoing. And if you donate $10 or more, you can still get that PDF that we're going to be sending out of our translation of the Nafahat al-Uns by Jami. And for those of you who have already done so,
That
please
actually
know.
say our abridgment of the translation.
That's important. Yeah, it
Yes.
is an abridgment. I mean, it's a thorough one for the first chunk of it, but there's no way that we could do every single person contained therein. So we're going to do the figures that are people that many of you might recognize from stories that we've told about our tradition or figures that show up in the lineage of our tradition. And I think it will be a really amazing learning tool. It's not a scholarly piece, but it will be an excellent learning tool. And hopefully that you'll derive a lot of benefit from it. Those of you who will end up receiving it. I think I said probably by the middle of this week, I'm doing my deep dive into it now. I will let you know if that deadline changes, but please know that it is on the near horizon. And thank you so much for your patience with that. All right, anything else? I think that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Onward.
donate if you want to donate. We'll love you for it. It'll help us out. It'll help us keep going into the new year and continue the work that we're doing here, which is helping people wake up and to stay awake, ourselves included. So, thank you for that. Onward, let's talk about Gurdjieff and this matrix thing.
Okay. Sorry, I was trying to take a nap
Oh.
real quickly in the introduction. So, most of you probably are aware of the Gurdjieff's ray of creation with all of the weird numbers. It starts with a zero, goes to a three, then a six, then a 12, then a 24, then a 48, uh, then a 96. And if you have listened to us for a while, you know that those represent levels of constraint upon being. He called them laws. The law of three, the six laws, the 12 laws, all of that. But the law is not what it is because it's not like thou shalt not do this or anything like that. They're processes. And we understand this to be uh, the theophany, the extension of the divine into the phenomenal world.
Hmm.
And as Gurdjieff pointed out, you start with zero. Zero becomes one. One splits, but it doesn't split into two. It splits into three because once you have the two, you have to have the third. And we've gone into this in a bunch of detail, and I will put links up at the on the end screen to various videos where we've talked about all of this stuff at length, but we don't want to rehash it all right now because we'd be here too long and then we would miss dinner and that would be sad. But the way it works is you have three as the first expression after the one. And the three represent the three laws: wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling. And those three laws exist outside of time, is the best way I know of to describe it. I think of this, the laws are like chords that you can play. And the first chord that you play, we'll call it a major C chord, right? You play it all at once, three notes hitting together. There is no time between the notes. And each of the notes that make up that major chord exist in the same time frame. When we move from three to six, it's all still made up of those three notes, but you have six possibilities of how the notes are arranged, and they are played in time. Time enters at six, at the six laws, or the six processes, as we like to call them. And
This is kind of like as you descend into
yeah,
complexity and more tangible manifestation, let's say.
yeah, and the six laws are the first laws that manifest in this world because they manifest through time. So it's the same chord, um, 1, 3, 5 for a major chord, but rather than being played simultaneously, they are played as an arpeggio, which is one note after another. I think that's the right word. So you've heard both of these. If you play the guitar, you strum the chord and you hear the whole chord. And you can also pluck the chord one note after another. You can do that on a piano. It works even better on the piano because you don't have the pick time. You have three fingers going down. Does this make sense so far? I
Yep.
mean, you don't have to take it too far. We have to set a little bit of foundation. Now, each of these six laws are fundamental to creating the flow of the universe, for lack of a better term. They are the foundations upon which everything else are built because it moves from uh, these six fundamental processes, doubles into 12 to 24 to 48. Gurdjieff says 48 is the level that human beings are supposed to be on, but these days most people are on the level of 96, which is 96 levels of constraint upon being. So at the foundation of this, you are basically a robot. You are a stimulus response meat machine. There is nothing real going on. At level 48, where human beings are supposed to be, you have some possibility of being a person. You can free yourself from half of those laws and be at the level of 24, which is the beginning of, as Gurdjieff says, man without quotes. It's also woman without quotes or anybody else without quotes.
Being without quotes, it all
Yeah.
works. Yeah.
And according to Gurdjieff's thought, And we tend to agree with him on this. The highest level you can get, the least complex level of laws that you can get while being in this universe is the six laws. People who operate at that level uh, are the miracle workers that we have seen throughout history, walking on water, parting the Red Sea, um, all of that kind of stuff, healing the sick. It operates usually at that level for the great masters. Now, Gurdjieff used one of the six laws to create his method of teaching. And I'm going to pull up a bit of a note here. That one.
Is this a image?
No, I
Mhm.
didn't have time to do up an image for this.
Okay. Oh, good.
It's all good. So, the last of the six laws is called freedom. It's also called wisdom. It has both of these qualities. And when we look at the microcosm of this, and it would be arranged as law 321. So we have the reconciling, then the denying, then the affirming.
Yes, since as we know those that one, two, three represents the three laws, and those three laws are mm, or rather they refer to the three forces, like
Yes.
Stock mentioned. Yes.
And how the three forces are arranged. And just like playing the three notes of a major scale, of a major key, will
Yes.
sound differently depending on where you start. This is the same thing. You get different qualities. And so in the microcosm, the way that Gurdjieff understood this as the three forces were that in the microcosm, you would have the first number, three, would be breath. The second number, the the denying would be posture. And the third number, the affirming, would be movement. Or I have that backwards. I'm sorry. Movement, then posture.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So
So we
when we
have
look at Gurdjieff's work, we see him talking about this and addressing it over and over in his work. And what was his major practice? His major practice is not self-remembering. His major practice is not self-observation. His major practice was the dance. And we can take that as pretty accurate because we look at the one person who was probably his finished student, and that was Madame de Salzmann, and that's where she put her attention. She had attention on the other stuff too, but we have breath, we have movement, and we have what Gurdjieff called posture. We can also call that structure. Now, you will remember that Gurdjieff used to talk about people only having a limited number of postures. What does that mean? What does it mean to have only a limited number of postures?
You're operating under the constraints of those postures.
Yes, you are definitely doing that. Let's try an experiment. Everybody sit up straight. Now, I want you to think of something that made you happy. And I want you to think about it enough that you can actually begin to feel the happiness that you felt at the time of that memory. And I want you to relax your body and see how your body wants to shift to assume the natural posture of that happiness. What's going to change? Is your head going to come up? Are you going to look down? Where is your breath going to go? Now, change that memory to something that made you sad. Not really sad, not super sad, just a little sad. A little awe. And notice how your body will naturally want to shift from the posture that you call happiness to the posture that you call sadness. What changes? How do the shoulders change? How does the head change? How does the spine change? And as you do this, I want you to realize that you do this every day. Your postures will run through their habitual positions depending on your state. And there will be postures that you don't do, that you can't find. These days, we call that sensory motor amnesia. And if you've done any body work with people as a body worker, especially, you will notice that everybody has some. I've never run across anybody who didn't have some sensory motor amnesia unless they've done a huge amount of work on themselves. And for every place that you cannot move into, where you have that sensory motor amnesia, you are locked there. You have lost energy in that space. So if you can't move yourself into your position of happiness, you are going to have grave difficulty in experiencing happiness. Gurdjieff talked about it in terms of the theater, how there may be an actress who only knows the posture of a servant, and she can play great servants. She can be the best maid, the most wonderful cook, all of these sort of things, but she could not play the posture of a queen because she just doesn't know that one. Now, that example moves from posture to movement because it is not just one habitual stance in that case, but the actress would be moving through a number of different postures or stances or movements that would all conform to the idea of the servant.
To the servant, to the queen, whatever
Yeah,
it might be. Yeah.
whatever it might be, whatever's in her repertoire. Now, that's posture. Then we have movement. Think of the Gurdjieff dances. You've all seen them, right? If you haven't, you'll find tons of them on YouTube. They are weirder than a football bat. Yeah, and they're designed to be that because they're just designed to move people through arcs of motion that are unfamiliar to them in ways and patterns and rhythms that are not part of their so-called natural movement. It's actually being part of your unnatural movement because everybody should be able to move through all of these arcs unless they have some sort of organic damage that prevents them. Does that make sense so far?
Yep.
So there are a bunch of practices that can help you with this and a bunch of practices that will make this worse. And it's up to you to figure out which one is which. So movement is about reclaiming your range of motion, reclaiming the places where unconsciously you avoid moving. Does that make sense? Do you get a sense of that? Good. Everybody try this. Turn your hand like this. Put it center here. Elbow in tight to the body. Bring it up, rotate it around, and bring it forward. Forward here, like this. And then come back. That's a weird movement for most people. Most of the time, you'll wing your elbow up, and you want to keep your elbow close for this particular movement. So just up. Think of it like a flower. You know, when a flower comes out of the ground and it twists and turns towards the sunlight and then moves forward and then moves back. Sun goes down, the flower closes up. Now do it with your other hand and notice that you probably did it first with your dominant hand. And if you do this with your non-dominant hand, it's probably going to feel a little bit more difficult, which tells you that you have a little bit of sensory motor amnesia there. You have a harder time connecting with that non-dominant hand.
Yeah, they seem pretty much the same to me, but I suspect that's probably because of the fact that I spent a lot of time playing piano.
That will do it. Yeah. Most instruments, like if you play guitar, the left motor cortex, or the right side of your brain for the left motor is going to be more developed than the right side because your left hand is doing so much intricate stuff on the string, and your left hand might just be plucking with a pick. But if you're playing an instrument like piano, where both hands are equally involved, your brain develops more uniformly. So, last we look at breath, the reconciling force. And once we cover this, then I will start talking about how Gurdjieff put all of these things together. So, what is the reconciling force? The answer is pretty simple. It is the force that allows the higher and the lower to connect. My favorite example of this is the structure of an atom. Simplest element in the universe is hydrogen. Hydrogen contains one proton and one electron, and they are in balance You have the drawing in of the weak force trying to pull the electron to the proton because opposite charges attract. This is all very, very I'm glossing over the stuff, making it as simplistic as possible so I don't have to talk about it for a couple of hours. And you have the spin of the electron trying to fly away from the nucleus, which in this case is just a proton. Now, the important thing here is that opposite charges attract. Same charges repel. So the next element up from hydrogen is helium. Helium, as I remember, and Ian will correct me if I get this wrong, uh, you have two protons and is it four electrons?
Mm,
Two electrons?
No, it has to be two electrons.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
The only
And
thing that I'm not sure of is whether there's one or two neutrons.
there
I
will be two
two.
neutrons, but I
Yeah.
was saving that for the last. Because without those neutrons, the nucleus of the helium would go flying apart. They would repel each other, and you could not have anything else. So if you want to have an element more complicated than hydrogen, you have to have the third force, which is represented by the neutron, the neutral charge that allows the positive charges to be together. It literally neutralizes them in a way so that they can hang out in the same nucleus. Does that make sense? You've all played with magnets and noticed that if you hold uh, two poles together, they push apart, and you flip one around and they pull together.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would comment is that I believe there are actually two isotopes of helium, and the one with just one neutron is called tritium, and it's less
Yeah,
stable.
yeah, it's very unstable. I'm talking about natural elements at this point, not shit that
Yeah.
we've done so that we can
Yeah.
blow each other
I
up.
mean, we know you understand this, but just so everyone knows, we're just using this as a way to illustrate what we're talking about. Otherwise, it sounds very esoteric and somewhat unrelatable. So, well,
Yeah.
are atoms that relatable? I don't know, but that's what we got, guys.
Yeah,
Some
most
people
of
don't
us
know.
have at least touched on this in elementary school
Yeah,
or have played with magnets.
magnets. How do they work? This is how.
Yeah.
And
Same
we
charges repel, opposite charges attract. And somehow we have to trick these things to hang together in complex order.
Mhm. So returning to, we talked about, yeah, so this reconciling force is always the hardest piece to this.
Yeah,
And
because as Mr. Gurdjieff points
yeah,
out, we are third force blind.
we haven't talked
Everybody
about
sees
that in
the
a
yin and
while,
the yang.
but yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think of the yin, the yang, and the yowza. So, why is breath the reconciling force?
Any guesses? Anyone want to take a stab?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that
Yeah, Jefferson, please.
that breath is a return. I mean, that's just the words that come. That breath is the return. When like when I just go to the simplicity of what I've been doing of being aware of my breath, I come into the some kind of an equilibrium or harmony or a place that I can move from whereas before I could have been spiraling and zipping around in my mind or unconscious. So that's my stab there.
Thank you for that, Jefferson. I think one word that stands out to me is this sense of equilibrium. And I know you were kind of using that in a state sort of way, but I'm also thinking of it in terms of, let's say, connecting the inner and the outer, for example, and things of that nature. Ian.
Yeah, it was occurring to me that there must be a way in which it kind of acts as a mediator between posture and movement.
Right in one. And posture and movement mediate breath. So each of them is connected. Combine two and you get the third. No matter which two you combine, you always get the third. So let's look at that. Everybody sit up again. Be as straight as you can. And I want you to let all the air out of your lung. Now, without breathing, I want you to completely letting your chest be relaxed. Bring your shoulders up and back and your chest forward. What happens? Air naturally comes into your lungs unless you're holding your breath in. Don't hold your breath. Now, if you reverse that, shoulders forward, chest moving towards the back, all the air goes out. You do not have to breathe to breathe. Your movement will breathe you. And this is something that most people never think about. The lungs are a passive organ. The lungs don't do anything but sit behind your ribs. They do not move. Your body moves them. Now think about that. Your body moves your lungs, and your posture controls how your body can move. And your breath is the mediator between those things, between the movement and the posture. Let's try another experiment. We're going to breathe just using our clavicles. And that means our breath is going to come from way up here. And it's going to see how my shoulders kind of move up and down. You don't take in a lot of air doing that, but notice how it makes you feel. Just up here. You notice in order to get enough air, you have to breathe pretty fast, right? Now, let go of that. Now we're going to breathe from the thorax, from the chest. So chest expands like that. Simple. Now we're going to breathe from our belly. Easiest way to do this is to put your hands on your belly around your navel. When you inhale, expand your belly. And when you exhale, pull your belly away from your hands. Don't move your chest. Don't move your clavicle. Just your belly. Now, how did those three feel to you? If you're like most people, the clavicular feeling, the clavicular breathing is going to induce a little anxiety, slight bit of fear. It's uncomfortable. If you're breathing at the thorax, you're probably going to feel like aggressive. And occasionally, if you're really into it, you're going to feel a little angry, but you'll think aggressive here. And then the belly will be relaxed, mellow, unless you're doing something weird like reverse breathing, but we aren't going to get into that. Yes, Ian.
Yeah, I can't say that I felt
Yeah, but I
any
only have you
difference.
doing it for a few seconds.
Yeah, but what I did find fascinating, um, because I've tried figuring out what is going on with breath over many years and never made any progress. And what you've just and just this little demonstration of how movement makes it happen, I find just remarkable.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating, fascinating thing.
Yeah, and very few people understand this. Some Tai Chi people understand it. My first Tai Chi teacher said, you know you're doing the form correctly when you don't breathe for the entire form. The form breathes you instead. And the first time that I seriously felt that, it blew my little mind. So if you want to try this for a longer period to where you can really get a sense of what each of these kind of breathing makes you feel like, it's going to take maybe 5 minutes for each style of breath.
And do it in a safe place,
Yeah,
not
don't
all
do it while you're driving your car.
rabid. Yeah.
Now, given that Gurdjieff understood this in some form or another, it is our contention that he used this model, which is called the process of freedom, to craft his practices. That you find this in his movement. You find this in his stop exercise, which is designed to break you out of particular postures. You find this in well, we talked about his one breathing practice last week. You find it there.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why practices like the one we discussed last week are so functional and helpful is because they do engage all three of these in such a way that it does enable the development of the practice of freedom.
So, how do you make use of this? And interestingly, I find no evidence anywhere in Gurdjieff's writings of him talking about this in this particular way.
Not what, yeah, not, explicitly, this is how it is. So that's not what's on offer here, but it is implied.
Yes. And a couple of his first level students have talked about similar things, but nobody, as far as I know, explicitly like this. So what does this mean to you? Yes, Jefferson.
Well, with where I am right now in mainly using awareness of breath and self-observation. As you talk about this, it's as if this is the lowest hanging fruit of self-observation for me. I'll be working, and it's interesting because I don't have that upper clavicle breathing hardly ever that I'm aware of, but that chest when I do, because I can get angry at the inanimate objects that I'm working with, and I'll go to self-observation, and then I'm like, wow, I'm like an ape. I feel like I'm an ape being angry, and then I'll use that. Sometimes that's as far as I go with the self-observation, and I'll return to to awareness of breath, and that'll drop it. So now, but what you're painting a picture of a more scientific method, which I know there's more to it, but it's slowly coming together for me. So
Excellent. Good. I mean, this is exactly how it works. Everything kind of slowly comes together, as you said. It's to me, it's better that way because you get to kind of digest it as you go and integrate it as you go. Yes, Ian.
Yeah, I find it to be a fascinating illustration of the practicality of the law of three, which so often seems just abstract. This
Hmm.
is very
Yeah.
concrete and applicable.
Doesn't really get more concrete than your literal bod, right? All right. Osama says, what does he mean by freedom or practice of freedom? Well, practice of freedom, we have, let's use a different way to frame it. We have the opportunity to wake up, right? We have the opportunity to practice being awake. But that's an active process rather than a passive one. Freedom is an active process,
Yeah.
at
Gurdjieff,
least in this context.
yeah. Gurdjieff talks about uh, man in quotes cannot do. That only when you become man without quotes, and he uses the term man, so I'm not going through and
It's
neutralizing that.
textual. Yeah.
It's textual.
Yep.
Uh, what that means is that as long as you are under the control of the stimulus response meat machine, under the control of your conditioning, you have no freedom.
Hmm.
Freedom is being able to actually choose, not what your conditioning says, but what is most appropriate to the moment for you and for your aim, which hopefully by that time you understand. Does that make sense, Osama?
Good. Great.
Yeah. Ian, give us more thoughts.
Yeah, I was just going to say I would bring it back to where you started with the different levels of laws,
Yeah.
and moving from 48 to 24 and so on.
Increasing freedom.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So at the level of 6, which is the highest level that you can possibly be while incarnate in this plane of existence, according to people who know more than I do. Uh, that means it's only these 6 laws, which you can watch another video. We touch on each of every one of those and how they relate to you as a person and what their constraints are. Just, 6 rules that you follow, as opposed to at the level of being a rockhead, you have 96 rules that you follow.
A rockhead.
A rockhead. Because by the time you're at the level of 96 levels of constraint on the being, you are completely sedimented. You are the limestone of humanity. We want to be fluffier than that.
Any other questions while we take a pause? No. Okay. Osama, yeah, sure.
Yeah, not a question, more like a comment.
Hmm.
I like what Jefferson said about having it be some kind of a doorway to self-observation. Um, as as you shared that, Jefferson, it made me think about when I learned how to breathe from my belly. It was like a it was like life-changing almost. It was like, wait, what? And it was during the same time of learning meditation and stuff like that. And yeah, I think just learning that allows for, or it somehow, listening to this talk is like it did something of changing the posture, changing the structure, um, the inner reality of which my how I deal with myself or my inner reality started to shift also just by moving in that direction. Now that I'm looking back at it, now in that moment, maybe I didn't necessarily realize it in that way, but I can see how breathing in that way definitely changing the posture, not just in a body posture, but the inner posture.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're drawing the connections. That's great because we're actually going to be getting into more of that. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you to you and Jefferson. And you too, Ian. Sure.
And I
Yeah.
was just thinking about how um, in some of my classes where people are learning how to do backward bending or opening up through the chest and how I talk about the breath as well. But I had one experience where I had these little baby backward benders. So we're lying on the floor and we've got to drape ourselves, our thoracic spine over it. And three people really objected to draping themselves over. And we always are just warning them that, you're opening your emotional center, your throat center, and you're going to feel certain things. And those three people, now that you're talking about how the anxiety is around here, and you can feel it when you're compressing down, that by releasing it, they were so upset about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, depending on where they're arching, you're either going to get anxiety or anger or both.
Mhm.
So the three of them threw up and really couldn't repeat it again. And I thought, this is how sometimes um, we can get fixed, or even I can get fixed about some certain thing. And when you're trying to practice and open up, that whole resistance is there to say, this is not normal. This is not normal. This is not normal. And you can't seem to break yourself out of it. And so being able to, start off with a small mound and then a bigger blanket and a bigger pillow and then a bigger something else so that you really then can start opening up, just the simple instruction of rolling your shoulders back and down and opening up through there. For us, that feels okay. But for a lot of people, that's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it's just it means that I'm exposing my
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
emotions
that's
and everything.
a
But I
And
very
always
human response.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you'll also run across people who literally can't do that.
yeah.
They'll try and lay back on that backboard and they'll be hunched up like this, laying back like
Hmm.
that, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
they cannot let their spine flex in that direction. They have literally forgotten how.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to get them to hold their head. And I said, pull your wings in. I said, put your elbows in so that you can actually control lowering yourself back. Because even for older people, I'm working with older people and they're sitting in a dining room chair. So with that high back, that supports them to be even to think about just looking up. Some people have to have that physical contact. So this is why I like sitting against the door, that I've got the back of my head, the shoulders and the hips are touching, and it feels really comfortable to me. But it takes practice to be able to sit there and be relaxed in that. And then I have to take it into a movement thing. So when I'm playing my tennis, or I tried table tennis nearly a month ago, and I haven't played for decades. And it was just like, wow. But I was using the breath and the things that you talk about here. And I'm thinking, when I start panting, and then I can feel the anxiety, and then I'm going to fluff everything. But I just kept the rhythm. And I thought that was really interesting. And I'm not saying I'm any good or anything, but I managed to hit up with this fellow without even taking a drink for nearly 2 hours. I was just like, whoa. And he goes, you got really good eye-hand coordination. He's 73. He's 73. So, but he was just lovely. But it was about, it reminded me that when I'm practicing, even when you're talking about the posture, finding where that breath is coming in and out easily. Even my tennis coach says this to me too. He says, I want you to hit the ball in a rally for 100 without a break, without losing that. And that brings a lot of anxiety too, because you think, oh, how do I get to that? But when he always keeps telling me to relax, and you guys talk about relaxing, and I'm thinking, yeah, it is. That's where my freedom comes. You think, I'm trying too hard, because you're describing something really simple and elegant, and just no frills. It's really, but we try to complicate it, and I can feel myself trying to complicate and go, but what about this? And what about this? What about So, so that I find it really interesting that your idea of freedom, and I'm thinking, when you're talking about amnesia, are you saying I actually had this movement before and I've forgotten it? Or am
Most of
I?
the time, that's the case.
Yeah. And then other times, maybe I didn't have that movement, but it's that exploration and curiosity to.
Yeah, and these days that can definitely be so, because even little kids don't move like they did even in my generation.
Mm, mm. I see that too, where little kids can't touch their toes. I'm thinking, what the
Yeah,
hell? You haven't even fully ossified yet, and they can't bend over,
Mhm.
yeah.
and
Or
they
they
can't.
don't know how to throw something.
Oh yes, that's a big one too. I think they don't know how to throw things, and this is one of the things I think that is useful meeting both of you is games. We've got to play games so
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
you're with a human. The games challenge you. It's random, more random, and you're really testing the very fact that you're breathing from where. So when I watch, say, Carlos is just the most amazing tennis player. He's really upright. If you ever watch him, and I watch things without sound, really interesting thing too. Watch things without sound. You think, wow, that person is upright. They're using everything of their capacity. That's what I need to do. The ones that actually hunch over and get ready to hit, they're the ones that actually don't have the breath. And you think the ones that are upright, they're ready. And he leads with his chest. And I think, poor, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's what for me, that's the next level of the practice, is taking it into, as you say, functional, instead of just sitting still and breathing. But when, as Jefferson says, when you're working, you can feel it in your body. You think, this is a practical work. That's the other side of it too. That's
Yes.
all.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Sherry.
yeah.
Good thought. Yeah.
So now that you have been enlightened by this great and profound knowledge, what do you do with it? Don't everybody answer at once. Yes, Osama.
Well, I think one thing that now I'm uh, inspired by, I mean, it's a combination of what Jefferson mentioned and what Sherry also just mentioned. There is allowing for the body, the posture, and the breath to inform the experience rather than having a conceptual idea informing the outer. It's I don't know if I expressed it correctly, but really allowing my body to inform what's really going on and being open to what are there any emotions that I'm not willing to face just yet, right? Like the people that Cherie mentioned. Instead of be like, oh, wait a second, this doesn't feel right. Nope, this is not it. But like, wait, how come? What is this posture informing me right now? So there's something there.
Kind of like a receptivity to that sensing, feeling, whatever
Yeah,
is arising, as opposed to being like, oh no,
right.
this is the stop time. We don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or oh, my body's not feeling right. I know, nope, it's not it.
Something's
Like,
wrong. Alert.
right.
Alert. Yeah.
Which there's that portal, I guess what Jefferson was talking about, this self-observation that allows for that informing to come in at the same time. That's what comes to mind as far as the practical thing for me, as far as what's this conversation has inspired.
Great. Shuri, did you have your hand up? No. Okay.
Mustakim. Yes.
I just want to ask the question because in the email there is a mention about the residual tension, where or how to recognize them, or yeah, what is that residual tension?
Residual tension and how to
Oh,
recognize
yes.
it.
Residual tension. Sit up. Put yourself in as perfect a balance as you can. And notice where there is tension in your body that you don't need to keep you sitting up like this. Some people, you might find your shoulders are up. One is up and the other's down. One is down and the other's up. Leaning forward, leaning backward. Head comes out. All of these things. Where are you holding tension that you don't need to hold to stand up? You need a certain amount of tension in your body. It's called tone. Tone is what allows you to stand up straight without holding on to anything.
Yeah.
If you were to completely relax your body, you would fall to the ground.
Just be a blob.
Yeah, you would just blob
Bones.
out.
Yeah.
But beyond what you need to do your functions, there is tension in your body. Cherie, you know about this. Help me out here.
Well, it keeps everything in place as well, where your organs don't slide out your bottom. You know, they're there.
Always a good thing.
Not a good look. But but you think your cardiovascular system, the arterial system, is muscular. So you've got all these little muscular contractions happening all the time to keep your circulation going, to keep your oxygen going, your digestion's going. You have all of these things. You can talk about sympathetic, parasympathetic, and all that and get too complicated. But just think about everything that's functioning in your body is to always achieve balance, to achieve homeostasis. So the movements that you're choosing are going to provide an imposition on your body to accommodate that. So that's why some things that you're habituating feel normal, but not ideal. So that's a really good concept to think about, that when we're trying to find what is ideal, what is good, balanced, front to back, left to right, where you're not holding the tension in your face, let your eyes go soft, let your jaw go soft, and you think that is more ideal. than where most people are holding themselves. So where it's the most efficient, where you're using the most oxygen, where you're using the least amount of energy so that you've got energy for all the important things. So you don't overeat, you sleep, you rest, all of that. It's all about that balance. Will that do?
That's useful, yes.
Yes.
Now,
Thank you.
one place that most people carry some tension is in their shoulders. 90% of the people I've seen out there carry residual tension in their shoulders. So you'll sit and you might be doing this, or if you do a lot of work on the computer, you're doing this, and then you stop, and that tension is still there, and you have to learn to let it go. Residual tension in the body uses your energy.
One spot I just noticed it for myself was I'm holding myself upright. I'm using a lot more of my tummy muscles and my lower abdominals than I actually need to. And that was constricting my breathing in turn. I wasn't taking naturally deep breaths because everything was just sort of clamped in tight. So once I realized, I don't need those lower stomach muscles activated to be sitting here comfortably, and my breathing became a bit more accessible and deeper. And just a little bit of energy, spent on burning fuel to keep the muscles active gets used up.
I got a good thing that everybody can try right now. So you're sitting there. It's better done standing. But if you put the back of your hands onto your lower back, okay, and you just lean back until it's completely soft, but you're still upright. Now, just allow yourself to just tilt forward a tiny bit and just feel all of those lower strap muscles on your back engage, just like that. Just the tiniest bit. So you're now feeling why are you holding that tension? Your center of being able to hang from the crown of your head to your tailbone, if you've got your head forward, just looking down, just feel those muscles engage. So it is really subtle. So you think, okay, I might have to close my eyes. I take a breath, drop those shoulders down, lean back until those muscles are completely soft. Now look down and feel how those muscles just engaged. So when you look down, your body follows. If you have your eyes up, that tension just went soft again. Softening. It's not goes completely, but it's just even leaning forward half an inch. You've engaged. Bang. So this is how I'll teach people how, if you're holding too much tension, how much are you like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, where your head just went forward a little bit and all the strap muscles down your back just engaged, just the tiniest bit. But finding that balance where your head is over your shoulders over your hips. And you got to just go back a little bit. You think, oh, there it is. There it is. It's so subtle, but there you go.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Great. Michael.
So, a lot of my reasoning when going over these things is, I'm in AA, right? So a lot of the practices that I look at are to deal with stress or things that can agitate. So is it that it's like in alcoholism, alcohol is the go-to for any stimulant or stimulation, so is this the practice of going to the breath, staying with the breath prior to the decision to move, dependent upon the stimulant, you know what I mean? Something
Yeah.
is stimulating for me to do something, but instead having the pause before the the reaction?
This is a good question, I think.
Yeah. So I would use breath to interrupt the mechanical pattern that makes you reach for a drink. And I say this with a certain amount of confidence because when my brother came back from Vietnam, he crawled right into a bottle and it took about 5 years to get him out. And I went to a lot of AA meetings with him. And I found them valuable for him, valuable for me, because it's general human ideas. And the idea that drinking is a single unit of unconscious behavior. When you get that idea that you're going to drink, you are not reasoning out the steps. You're just going to do it. And so to be able to break that pattern at its beginning is incredibly valuable. And one of the ways you can do that is through breath practice. Does that make sense?
It does. That's my hit, because with everything that we've talked about, it seems, because I study a lot with systems, so, and contemplating this, it's not, I wanted to say that it's to control the breath, but I'm not finding that it's like control as much as it's the option, or the
Yeah.
better option to agitated stimulus, because I don't know, in a lot of the environment, especially being a truck driver, right, I find myself in agitate, and I drive in California, so you can only imagine.
So
It's
you're surrounded by idiots at all times. Yeah.
It's agitated stimulation within the environment that I find myself in. And I mean, and it's not that I don't use this, but it's like I want this to be like my mark of approval, because it is breath that I go to as my practice. We pause before action. That's the
Yeah.
whole in the literature. But you know what I mean? That's what I'm taking from this, is that the regulating of my being prior to the importance of the response.
Yeah, you are dead on this.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And breath is a really good tool for doing that. It's not that you're going to control your breath, but you're going to use your breath to control your state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically staying awake and staying at choice and away from mechanical habit.
Right. Okay. Then I'm tracking then very much so. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes. Yes. Sherry says, let your breath be the first action.
Well, it kind of is, If you think about it, the first thing you did ever in your life was breathe. Right? Anybody here been around a baby at its birth? Yeah, the first thing that baby does is it takes a big breath in and then it yowls at the world because it is in an uncomfortable place and it doesn't like it and it wants you to know. So, what do you do with this? What you do with this is realize that this pattern is how Gurdjieff worked. When he created his dances, when he created the music for his dances, when he created the various exercises that he did, when he wrote his books, you will find this particular pattern of 3, 2, 1. again and again and again in how he asks you to break your conditioning. And so if you begin to use this, so here you are, you're going to do your practice. First practice you're going to do is you're going to learn how to breathe using your body, using movement. And you're going to do this by letting your spine curl forward, your head to drop down. I'm really exaggerating here, so don't do it as much as this, but you have this pulling your stomach muscles in and letting all the air out. Then you're just going to move up and back. This will bring air into your lungs. You don't have to go, just do this movement to let the air come in. Hold it there for a moment and then come forward and let the air go out. Take your time. There's no rush.
Yeah, this is one of those movement breeds you kind of
Yeah.
practices.
And this tells you something. And I'm not even going to tell you what it tells you because it's more fun if you find out yourself and you're going to go, wow, that told me something. Then notice that without the movement, there is no breath. The lungs are a passive organ. They do not breathe themselves. You breathe them. And then this is where the body scan comes in. You will notice as I come forward, let everything hang. I'm going to feel some places where there's some residual tension. As I come up and back, there may be places where I catch. And it's literally a catch. You feel like, oh, something just almost tried to lock up there.
Like a shudder in your
Yeah.
motion.
Yeah. You'll find that in your breath. You'll find that everywhere. And this is your posture. This is your structure. And it will tell you where your structure is out of balance. So when you do whatever exercises you're doing, if you bear this in mind, it will give you a new dimension to how you can work with whatever practices you have. At our last retreat, we worked with this using a 4-foot stick, a little bit longer than 4 feet. It was a great stick. They were some of the best sticks I've ever run across. And we all had one. And we used it to do exercises with, to be able to use the stick to help us expand and contract and extend and withdraw and all of this kind of stuff. And we would move through places that our body didn't know how to move. We would find those places and it would help us breathe. So there's a lot of different exercises you can do with this. If you don't have a movement practice, learn Tai Chi, learn Chen, learn Yang, learn Wu, learn Sun. Any of them will teach you this if you have a good teacher. And the reason I say Tai Chi rather than anything else is because you move very slowly so you can learn to feel through the range of the movement. And if you can find a competent Gurdjieff movement teacher, you can try that. There aren't very many of them as far as I can tell.
But yeah, practices like Tai Chi, speaking from experience, can help you find all of those little parts of your movement that tend to have that wobbliness, that shuddery, that stiffness, whatever it might be, whatever quality it is that shows, that's not all that smooth right now. But you can use the practice as a way to smooth out those movements. and to regain capacity or to build capacity for smooth movement. But it's through the doing that you accomplish that. Unfortunately, this is anything but consensual. You cannot think your way through these things.
Yeah.
Conceptual, I mean, conceptual. It's not idea-based.
Yeah, Jefferson mentions the 5 Tibetans.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
If it's taught correctly, the 5 Tibetans are a great exercise. The problem with them is that in the original text, Kelder's book, the Fountain of Youth or whatever it was called, he did not teach anything about the breathing. Other people who have redone his book have tried to add different kinds of breathing in, and in my estimation, they're all wrong, and they won't do you much good.
Oh, wow.
There is a pattern of breathing that I learned that I think actually is what works, but that's neither here nor there. But there are a few people who can teach you that pattern of breathing. One of them is YL. He knows that one. Yeah, unfortunately, there's nobody in America who's teaching them that will teach that particular pattern of breathing.
Jefferson's also talking about how the movements themselves help support.
Yeah.
You know, as we're saying, you know, let the movement create the breath. Yeah.
Yep. So send me a note offline and I will direct you to a video and send you a little document on the particular kind of breathing that we learned that was very useful to us. If you're interested.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
For only $5.95. No, not really.
Yeah, did someone else have I don't know if that was Ian who had something he wanted to share.
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
All good.
Well, that's basically what I got to say about this, other than the only way this will be of use to you is if you use it with your own practice.
Use it with your own body. Use it with
Yes.
your own practice. Yes.
Yeah, your body is your practice. But having this as a matrix, having this as the idea of this is what he used, and he used it for a particular reason to craft his method around, is very useful. And yes, he stole it from the Sufis, but we aren't going to mention that.
Yes, and just as a disclaimer, I always like to think of the people who are saying, yeah, well, I'm disabled or my body doesn't work right. So how does this relate to me? I'm disabled. I could say my body doesn't work right, but this still applies to us. All of this is still part of our beingness, how we move in our bodies, regardless of how those bodies move. We're all here because we're breathing, you know? So if we're all breathing, then we all have access to this kind of practice.
Yeah, if you're so disabled that you are not breathing, you're beyond this. But even if you are being breathed by a machine, you're breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's all you got, that's enough.
Yeah, I mean, this process is at work in us, no matter who we are. That's my point. Well, with that said, I've got nothing else to add myself. Do we have any last questions or thoughts especially from people we haven't had the chance to hear from yet? How are you doing, Heidi?
Okay, it's kind of all new to me, so I'm just taking it in.
Excellent. And RM, I hope you're following along and that this is beneficial for you as well. It very much relates to the work that you do as a physician of, someone who's dealing with people who have who could likely really benefit from uh to realizing that this is true for them, that they do have access to breath, movement, and structure as an avenue through which to increase their sense of freedom. So we'll look forward to your thoughts on that. All right. What do you think, Mushtaq? Shall we go to Brady Bunch mode?
We should go to Brady Bunch mode.
All right.
Here we are.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. If you're celebrating Hanukkah, we hope you're having a good one and enjoy. We're going to be here next week at the same time, same place, I believe. Next week is not. Actually, next week is our Morning Talk Sunday. So we are going to be meeting up at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday, the 21st. And so if you'd like to join us then, as opposed to our usual time of 6:30 p.m. Pacific time on Sundays, which doesn't work for everybody, you're absolutely welcome. We love it when people can make it, at the time that works for them.
Yeah.
And
And
again,
we'll probably do something solstice-y on that day.
solstice, winter solstice, or for some of you, it's summer solstice. That's cool. All right. Yes. And continue to keep in mind that I will be sending out that PDF sooner or later this week. Thank you so much for hanging in there. So we can wave to each other, wave to everybody watching on the replay, and we'll see you again soon.